Hi, I'm Phil with Xcel-Tek. Today I'm going to show you how to set up, it could be a stationary blind or a portable goose blind utilizing the Xcel-Tek hinge kit for this type of blind. A 16-foot panel, a couple T-posts, going to have doors, flyaways. We're only going to set up the front section today because the back sets up just the same. So if you want one in front of you, one behind you, it's the same setup. We're just going to kind of go through it, let you see how it sets up, how easy it is utilizing the Xcel-Tek hinge kit for this type of blind. So here we go. Alright, so we have a regular T-post driver. Gonna set the blind up. The T-post, we're gonna sink it right here. I like the T-post, the flat side, to be towards the outside of the panel, outside of the blind, so that I don't have to worry about camouflaging the T-post. So it's going to be in here. Don't have to worry too much about how straight it is. We're just going to try to drive it down to where it's just below the top of the panel. We're going to set our second panel, or second T-post. Alright, that should be about right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set the wire panel, see how that goes. So I'm going to bring the wire panel in. I have a 16-foot section. Kind of going to center it up on these T-posts. Kind of bend that, get it straight. And one thing you want to remember, the way the Xcel-Tek hinges work, the horizontal wire of this primary panel needs to be facing towards the inside of the blind. So I'm going to have one section here. If we have it back, it's going to be here. I'm standing inside the blind. So the way the flyaway hinges work, this horizontal wire of this panel needs to be on the inside of the blind. So you have to remember that when you're doing it. I'm going to secure the panel to the T-post using the Xcel-Tek wire panel tying kit. We sell this kit on our website. Comes with a tying tool and a bag of wire ties. They're all galvanized, so that if you do want to leave this thing in the field set up for several years, they're not going to let you down. They're not going to rust in two. They'll keep the blind secured in place for a good duration of time. And the wire ties have loop ends. You just take the tool, put it through there, and tie it up. And I'm only gonna, since this is a temporary setup, I'm only gonna secure it with a few ties. For this type of a setup, for a temporary setup, 4 ties is plenty sufficient for this type of blind. If you want to leave it in place for several years, you might put 3 or 4 per post. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the doors on. The panel's secured to the T-post. Got the Xcel-Tek hinge kit here. There's two types of hinges in this kit. So what we have here is we have a flyaway kit. You'll see that the flyaway hinge, it has a no throat here. This Z-fold hinge, which allows our door to fold completely back on itself on the panel. That way, if you're doing a temporary blind setup, you want to load it into a trailer or whatever, it reduces the footprint of it, make it as minimal as possible. You'll see that the doors are going to be able to fold completely back on themselves when you get ready to load it up. Again, the flyaway hinges have no throat, and that's the distinction between them. So the next step is to secure the doors. I've selected to make my doors 32 inches wide. Makes a good hunting depth from front to back in the blind. There's a little trick I like to do, which is to secure one hinge ahead of time. Makes it a little easier to put on by yourself. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Our hinges are designed with a square in both sides, so we use carriage bolts. The carriage bolts lock into the square and makes it to where you only need one wrench to get the nuts tight. We like to use the impact driver. Makes it real quick, but you can use a wrench or a ratchet, either way. I just tighten them. There's a little air gap between the two, and I tighten it until the hinge and the clamp get metal to metal, and then that's enough for that. Then I'll come up here. I get ready to put it on. If you take and put the throat of this thing in against the horizontal wire, pivot it a little bit, and you can twist it right into place. Now that hinge works. If I get the second one on, then I'll be able to fully close my doors. The second hinge you have to put in place to start with. I'm going to pull that back in. Alright, go ahead and tighten that up. And now I have a functional door. You can see when you get ready to tear this thing down, put it in your trailer, if you're using this as a temporary situation, you can see that that door folds up nicely, and you'll be able to put it along the side of your trailer, no problem. Also, you get the added benefit with the doors of making your panel a lot more rigid. This door is bearing on the ground, makes that panel rigid for when the flyaways are deployed. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the other side. It's the same operation. Got my hinges and hardware for the lower side of the door. All right, so I've got that one set up where it pulls back in on itself as well. I'm gonna open those up, get them in the position I want, and now we're ready to do our flyaways. So I pre-cut my flyaway panels. The Xcel-Tek hinge works utilizing about a 3/8 projection on this wire. You'll need that in 2 positions. If you're doing a full length flyaway panel, you'll need 2 of these 2 hinges about every 4 feet of length that you have. In this case, I'm selecting to use about 40-inch panels, and I'm going to utilize 2 hinges per panel. So the way that's going to work is, for the flyaways to work, it twists in just like the door Z-fold hinges, but they're going to go on the flyaway panel like this. And you'll see what happens here is it catches right here and allows it to hold itself up. And we pre-bent these to give approximately the desired angle, and they can be adjusted to the desired angle if your setup requires something else. But that's the way it's going to work. I'm going to go ahead and install these. I do the same thing as the doors. I like to install 1 hinge. I'll install 1 hinge on here first, and then I'll put the panel in, and it helps me to handle the panel easier. So I've got 1 hinge with clamp and hardware. I'm going to go ahead and install that in position. Since my flyaway has the elongated piece one section over, this will be my location I'm going to install it. I told you that the horizontal wire of the panel had to be to the inside of the blind, and that's to give you the correct angle for the flyaway to be set at. So everything's the same as the door hinges, the way it mounts up here. Just put that on in position, tightens up the same way. And that one's ready to take a panel. So I'm going to go ahead and get me another hinge and hardware. I'm going to go ahead and twist in my flyaway panel so that it's going to hold itself. So it takes just a little bit to figure out which direction that goes, but you'll see that's going to set the angle right there. So that end's going to hold itself. I'm going to go ahead and install this panel, or this hinge, on the flyaway panel. Excuse me. And I'll tighten it up here in place with the hardware. So now it's holding itself up, and I'm just going to secure it with the fasteners here. Alright, so that one's active. You'll see that it's going to work. If it were camouflaged, it'd be nice and quiet, and you get ready to shoot. You'll be sitting in a chair. When you pop up, you'll throw that other way, and you're ready to shoot. So that's the way the Xcel-Tek flyaway hinges work. I'm going to go ahead and secure the rest of them on here. For this application, I'm going to leave a gap in between each one. That allows me to view incoming birds. I can brush this in where some of the brush comes over top of either side, and gives me a sight window, but not a direct line of sight for the birds to see inside the blind. So I'm going to go ahead and secure the first hinge in all the positions, and then I'll install the rest of the panels. I'm going to let you see how I install one more hinge here. It just clamps around the bar utilizing the grooves in the hinge and the grooves in the clamp. Carriage bolts, the square on the carriage secures into the square socket hole of the clamp. Same for both of these. I like to put the bolt to the outside just because I'm going to be hunting inside of here, and I don't want the end of the bolt to scrape me. So something to give some thought to. There's that one, and I'm going to go ahead and do the first clamp for the 3 remaining flyaways. So I've put my first hinge in location for the 3 remaining flyaways. I'm going to go ahead and index this one in. Set it up here. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one up and do this for the 2 remaining panels. Alright, so this is the finished product. It's got the 4 independent flyaways on here. You can see they all throw it if you get ready to shoot. You have plenty of room to shoot. Pull them back up, get ready for the next set of birds to come in. If you want more coverage from the side, you can simply make this panel taller, and it'll give you better coverage from the side when you're sitting in here. I've got a chair here so you can kind of see about how this thing would look in a hunting environment. So if it's camouflaged out and I'm sitting here hunting with my gun, I'm watching through the gaps to see if the birds come in. I throw it and I'm ready to shoot over the top of the panel. No problem. Using the Xcel-Tek hinge kit for this type of blind, you can see it's fairly easy for one man to build this type of blind. You can use it as a permanent situation or a temporary situation. It's just 2 T-posts that secure it through the back as well to give you rear coverage. You can put flyaways on or just use tall panels in the back, and functions nicely the same way. So now we're going to kind of show you, if you get ready to use this in a temporary situation, you can fold your door hinges in. They fold completely back on themselves, and now all we have to do is take the 4 ties loose from the T-posts, and I can walk this thing into a trailer, no problem. So I was going to give you a close-up of how the Xcel-Tek flyaway hinge works. You can see it's supporting the panel itself. It's actually resting on the hinge. So what happens is when you cut these panels, wherever the hinge position is, you want to leave this extension of this vertical wire about 3/8 beyond the lower flyaway horizontal wire. So when you do that, it creates a bearing point where the material that you left right here on the 3/8 extension comes down, rests against the hinge. It's doing that in both positions and supports itself in the desired position nicely for a flyaway. Yeah, to explain how the Xcel-Tek Z-fold hinge works, the hinge itself has a pretty big offset bend in it, which allows the panel to fold back on itself and allows it to fold up nicely. The reason we call it the Z-fold hinge is because this hinge gives you the flexibility to string an infinite number of panels together and just keep zigzag Z-folding panels back on themselves. You can use that in a wide variety of applications, but here it works very nicely for the doors, giving us a flat panel that you'll see when we tear down here in a minute. allows you to load this thing in the trailer nicely and not have the bulk of what a normal door would have. So one of the things that's really nice about this system for a blind setup is that when you get ready to come in, of course you're going to have a rear panel here. When you come in, you can open the door up, walk in. These can get out of your way so they're not hitting you in the head when you're loading the blind and getting set up for your morning hunt, and everything still supports itself nicely. So everybody has full access through the entire blind, and then when you get ready to hunt, you just bring everything into hunting position and you have good concealment, provided you have this adequately camouflaged, and you're ready for a good hunting setup. So, and there you go. So in some applications you may not like the factory angle that we have set on these flyaway hinges, or you might be in a high wind situation, say it's coming from the back here and it's not enough angle to keep the wind from blowing your panel over. You may want to change that. So I'm going to show you how you can change that angle. What you would do is, first, if you can see how the hinge operates here, you never want to start on this one that's going to pull against this side of the hinge. You'd want to start on the free side first. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust this, and I'm going to bring that back, and then I'm going to bring this one to it, just using a simple pair of channel locks. And I'm tightening that up right now to where it actually becomes tight again on the wire that's there. And then I'm going to match that on the other side. So I've opened that up, created some free space, brought that to it. Probably need to do a little bit more to match the other side. And you can see that I've changed the angle significantly from the rest of the panels. So pretty easy to change, simple, and it holds itself just the same way. So they fly down the same way. So pretty easy. You just use a simple pair of channel locks and you can change the angle as desired. I'm going to take you through a teardown of this type of blind. Once you have it all set up, have installed all the hinges, brushed it in, the setup is really just the opposite of what I'm about ready to do. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the wire ties and free the blind up. So just that right there frees the blind completely. It's easier to deal with if you put the front flyaways down when you're loading and unloading. So we've got that. Gonna fold this in. My partner's gonna come in. He's gonna get the other side for me, and we're gonna take it to the trailer. And it's as simple as that. So we've already showed you how to assemble a goose blind, and my buddy Keith is going to help me, and we're going to go ahead and do like a morning setup. Assume that the blind is already camouflaged, and we're going to unload it from the trailer. Go ahead and do the install. Got my T-post set. Getting the blind out of the trailer. Set it into position. Open my doors to kind of hold it where it needs to be. I've got my wire ties and my tying tool. we're ready to hunt in the morning. Of course, you'll need to do the rear too, same setup.